beating yourself up. What is that doing? I mean, you got to stop and look at it. And it's such a relief to be here in this place in life where I'm kind of like, my shoulders are dropping. And I'm just like, you know what? It's not the end of the world. It's not the end. There's a there's other ways you can go. There are other paths. And let's take a second. Let's look at the options. Let's see what we have to work with. And let's learn to trust our bodies as we go stepping into the unknown.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Reflections on Living Well podcast, where we explore perspectives on the good life in the 21st century. I am your host, Broderick Rodell. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Reflections on Living Well podcast. Today, our guest is Petra Hanson. Petra is the founder of Therapy and a radical believer in aerial movement as medicine. A former pop singer in Japan from New York City, Petra's obsession with aerial came after decades of dancing and singing on stages with her band. She wanted to dangle in the fabric, not to perform in a circus, but to heal chronic stress in her body. Seeking a gentler version for non-acrobats and middle-aged bodies, Petra eventually found her like-minded aerial teachers in Hawaii, Northern California, and New York, and a more therapeutic aerial practice. She believes all bodies, ages, and levels can enjoy the experience of moving in the air in a manner that's exhilarating, but also safe and calming to the nerves. Hi, Petra. How are you?
Hi, Broderick. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
I'm so
I'm feeling safe. I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling ready to get on camera with you, which is such a delight. It's great to see you, and thank you for welcoming me onto your podcast.
awesome. Well, I got a feeling this is going to be a fun, relaxing conversation, exploring ideas. Here this I'm not really rigid about it, and let's just be playful. That's the way I look at it. Let's have a playful dialogue and conversation. And it's like
I
when you
love
and I
it.
are sitting down having tea and at a table, and we get this broad audience that gets to tune in and listen to our conversation here. So,
I love it. I love it. Playful. Let's
so
keep it. That's exactly what I aim, and it's a quality that I'm looking for in my work as well in the silks. This
awesome.
element of going back into a space where there's not the pressure, where you're not performing. That's why I stress that it's not about performing. It's about, having that childlike sense of curiosity and opening up your body in the same way as I don't know. We tend to shut down as we get older, and
hmm
it's time to play again.
Yes, 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 yes. I know I just read that introduction, but I do like for guests to introduce themselves, and then from there, I'll ask you the big question, that the age-old question of what is life worth living? What is a life worthy of living, or what does living well mean? So,
Mm.
but first, if you have anything else you want to say about yourself, that would be great.
I think you hit the key points. I am really excited to bring this work that I'm doing now, after having done music, after having been lived a fair amount of years. At a certain point, you hit your midlife adulthood, and you're like, wow, there's more time behind me than as an adult life. So I really feel like I can speak now with some authority on that experience. Even the richness, the mistakes, the ups, the downs, all of it creates the richness and the layers of who we are. And I'm very happy to have come to this work. I do consider myself somewhat of a wounded healer. In other words, someone who's been through it to get to the other side. And I don't know what the other side is yet, but I know that I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling like I have something to offer to the world. And that is all through this wonderful tool of hanging in the silks, working with gravity, working with what we have, and seeing, exploring, and finding that curiosity moving in a supported way, letting go of all of the habits that don't serve us anymore, and
Mm.
building new pathways and opening new channels in our body, in our systems, and in our being and in our minds. So maybe not in that order, but all of that.
Yeah,
That's what
awesome.
ARP method is about. It's so much more than just going to a yoga class, even though all of yoga and all of movement and each and every form, each and every modality that I've ever done has added up to what I'm doing now, which is just, distilled into a different formula and format, but one that I feel really, really has helped me very much, and I want to share it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think you just said something that's even though I haven't asked a question about living well yet, I think you said something important that's related to that. And when you hinted at, I'm a wounded healer, we all learn through life. And as we get older, we make mistakes, we harm ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and we learn from all of that stuff. And then we have so much to give and share with others from our own healing process. And I love how you humbly said, I don't know what that other side looks like. And that's such an important piece of just being a human being that, we're constantly, what's the saying? We're a work in progress. We're constantly
Absolutely.
shifting and changing and learning from our various challenges in our lives, and we do our best to overcome certain things. But we're still in the process, and we don't necessarily know what the other side completely looks like. But we're moving in that direction. I think you subtly said something there that I think that is super important about being a human being that goes through challenges, and that we are all fallible creatures, and we do stuff sometimes unintentionally safe that ultimately hurts us physically, that we just wasn't aware of. And it wasn't because we quote unquote made a bad choice either. It's just that, oh, I don't know. Let's say I'm gonna say something silly. You go to a restaurant, you get food poison, and you're like, "Oh, I feel like crap." No, you made it. You didn't necessarily make a bad choice. It just life brought you food poisoning that put you
Mm,
out for a couple of weeks, and you hurt and you learn from it and try to see where you can be a little more careful the next time. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah. If we can learn from our bodies, I feel like that's been this chapter of my life is has been all about listening to the body and what does the body need and giving it what that's such an important part of growth. I think first part of my I don't know, growing up in America, I'm very much centric towards, you get on your path and you follow your career and you go, go, go. And it's a lot of directing from head. It's a lot of outward. I should be doing this and trying to hit those milestones of life, of the shoulds and things that you should have, whether it's material or checking off the boxes of something that you should have achieved by a certain age. Uh, and your body has a different story to tell about all of
Definitely.
it.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you when you're going wrong, like whatever outer influence you had or you thought you should be doing, at some point, something breaks down and your body will tell you like, yeah, that's not working anymore.
Exactly. Oh, I
That's what
know.
happened to me. And it is a many, people's path. And it's not a wrong way, we're just doing the best we can.
Yeah, I love it. I just wanted to you just emphasize it as well, and I tried to emphasize as well that folks don't take this, oh, I did something wrong, and get into this constant blame game on ourselves.
Oh,
Like,
beating
no, we
yourself
do.
up. What is that doing? I mean, you got to stop and look at it. And it's such a relief to be here in this place in life where I'm kind of like, my shoulders are dropping. And I'm just like, you know what? It's not the end of the world.
Exactly. I love it.
It's not the end. There's a
No.
there's other ways you can go. There are other paths. And let's take a second. Let's look at the options. Let's see what we have to work with. And let's learn to trust our bodies
Yeah.
as we go stepping into the unknown. Really, really, it's about, I think, finding your intuition and that power and letting that
Mm,
run the show.
awesome. Well,
Mm.
we kind of already jumped into a lot of it, but I want
Yes,
to
we
go ahead and
have.
ask you,
But we'll come
what?
back. It's going
I
to be
know.
like, it's going to
I
be
love
like
it.
circular and loopy and wonderful and all directions and all dimensions. So
I love it.
get ready, crowd. You're going to
That's
have to
right.
follow us. We go places. Yeah,
We like to play over here.
we do.
So, what does living well, or what is a life worthy of living? I kind of use those phrases or questions interchangeably. The good
Mm.
life. So, what does
Yeah,
that
I
mean
think
for
it's a
you?
constant quest and a constant shifting uh, place that we're trying to get to in a good way. In a good way, meaning that living well, I think I hit on it earlier just in that other question, talking about sometimes we think the good life is something that we're seeing from the outside or it's material uh, comforts. We think that we're going to go for that or that career or that goal. We set our goals at a certain point in our lives early on to hit what we believe might be the good life. And it's this sort of long in the distant goalpost that we're chasing. And I think chasing is an important word to look at too, because chasing is not being, chasing is moving towards something. And that's in a forced way, in a
Hmm.
forced way. I think the good life, or at least a balanced life, I think I want to use the word balance to define good for me because I believe in wholeness and balance. And that's sort of what I've been going for with the work that I'm doing now, finding alignment, true alignment, finding purpose. All of those things have a piece in giving us that sense of satisfaction and that we're on the right track and that we are it's yeah, that feeling that I just sigh, that I just went that, oh, okay, it's starting to feel right. It's starting to feel right. But I think the word that I've been saying a lot to myself lately as just a marker of what to come back to is grace.
Hmm.
And it's so basic, and it's a word that, but it's a simple word. I like it. It's one syllable. And I always say this in all of my classes too. Gravity is the root of all grace. It's a
Hmm.
quote by Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher. And it's just so simple and so wonderful because gravity is the root of all grace. There we have that. We have that force to work with on earth. We have that alignment to come back to, and that groundedness, grounded in gravity and grace. It's just sort of all wrapped up in one. And I know it's words and it's poetry, but whatever works for me today is what we're talking about. And so I find that that's what I found. And so I'm not here to preach. I'm maybe a guide for some people. I know I'm still searching like all of us are. But I know that that word grace, finding grace, is has a lot to do with with finding your joy and good life, joy and grace. I know they're two separate. No, they're not two separate things. I think they can go hand in hand. We're not here to earn a lot of money.
Hmm.
That's not grace and joy, right? So once that clicks and you go, wait a minute, because when I was doing well in my crazy past life of rock star and making it and really really I was exhausted. I wasn't really
Hmm.
finding my joy. And when I lost all that, it was very humbling and it was very misery making.
Hmm.
And it's also the theme of so many Hollywood stories and stories that we hear over and over again of that, ego climbing to get somewhere, getting there, and then being like, hey, wait a minute, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
Hmm.
And so that didn't get me true joy and true grace, striving for all that. I'm proud of myself for pushing and trying and going in that direction and making something of my life in that area. I'm still quite proud of it, but it wasn't where I was supposed to end up.
Mm.
And I think all I can speak to is my journey and how there's been this arc towards finding what is truly joyful for me and what brings it. And also there's an energy behind joy and grace that's shared. And I think that it's you can have it in your own heart, and that's super important to have that, but it's so exponentially greater when you can share it with other people.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm my goal is now. And 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 then staying on path with some of the world, with some of the challenges that pull us off our center of grace and alignment, and the things that are frustrating in our daily practice of life, things that are frustrating, technology, the day to day, keeping up, putting a roof over your head, whatever socioeconomic challenges you may be having, all of these things, living in the world, the political climate today, which is harrowing, reading headlines, seeing some of the darkness that's at work and at play around us makes it really, really extra challenging. And also, all the more important to be doing the work to finding your balance, because there's so many forces pulling us off our center right now and distracting us. Unprecedented
Mhm.
distractions.
Yeah.
So I find it quite challenging now, but also with the harder, it's a really interesting thing with the harder pull in these directions and the distraction, the harder you must work to stay centered. Um, we can do it. And
Mhm.
and it does create even, maybe perhaps even a stronger sense of balance
Mhm.
with, given the challenges. It's almost like we're all in training right now,
Mhm. Yeah.
in training for the darkness Olympics. I mean, you gotta laugh. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's like
I
true,
know.
right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We can bring it. We can have
And I
a.
think that's fair to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not putting any names or labels on any of it. It's just we all know what we're talking about.
Exactly. Crazy making.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love, man, so beautiful, Petra, all of it. I
Mm,
think you touched on so many things. First, I just want to say I just love how what you just said was so heartfelt and
mm,
genuine and powerful. I think what you just said was powerful
mm,
because you even started off like it's a quest,
mm,
it's a journey, it's an adventure. There are ups and downs, there are challenges. We're being challenged now. You also said something. This is where I'm at today. What I'm talking about today. You know, all these important parts of all of this balance, grace, all of these things, joy. How do we find it? You know, life is not just about seeking the tangibles of money. Yeah, money is important. You got to pay the bills. You want a certain level of financial freedom, of course. I think that's desirable and
mm,
beneficial. But when that becomes the sole quest and not all those other things that you mentioned, money can come and go, fame can come and go, all these different things, anything that kind of boosts the ego excessively or the sense of self excessively, that's all subsequent to, I mean, it's all potentially going to come crashing down. And like you said,
mm,
in Hollywood, you see numerous examples of this. And
mhm,
so when we cling so much to that identity, and then all of the social status that comes along with that identity, and then when we don't have it, you're right, it's humbling, it's challenging.
yeah. Yeah.
And but it comes to all those things you just mentioned, the important things of life. Having that balance. And you said something also important too. I thought. Well, I'll see. I'll ask you and see if you're willing to elaborate. So you
Mm.
mentioned that sometimes when we're striving or chasing after something, we're putting so much effort into chasing something. Versus the other thing that you mentioned that yeah, you do need effort, put effort in. You do strive to help find balance. Can you elaborate a little bit on the difference between those two things? Because you're
Yeah.
putting energy into both of them, but one is much more beneficial than the other. Can you say something a
Yeah.
little more about
Yeah.
that?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it allows me to dig a little deeper into what I mean by chasing versus being and being magnetic.
Mm,
Being magnetic is, and it's such an interesting uh, way to look at it. And the way I've been sort of shifting my view of things, of just this electric currency that we have in our heart. This electric currency, it's a currency that um, you can either be seeking, seeking, as I said, chasing, or attracting.
mm,
And I feel like when we are in our sense of balance, in our sense of worth, self worth, and that is all strong and grounded, and I lump it all together, but that's the way, and I lump it under grace as being, sort of the distillation word that I use. Uh, but when we have all that, we have everything. And things fall into place because we're in flow. And then we go, oh my goodness, I just walked out of my door and this thing happened. We have this amazing, this text will pop in from someone you haven't heard from for a while. And you're just in flow of these coincidences, and the right thing will happen in the right amount of time. And I stress how important it is to trust that flow when we're living in our balanced way, rather than trying. I mean, because what is trying? You're leaning forward. You're off balance. You're off center, as opposed to um, letting. I mean, it's the law of attraction or whatever, but I'm not like selling that as particularly in
no,
this
no.
statement. But it kind of, but that I use the feeling of being graceful, and just and that having magnetism, or having a magnet kind of feeling about your heart, knowing that you have it, you have all you need, and
Hmm.
you can attract what you need, and whether it's love or money or whatever it is, the right job, the right person, and people and community and support. Um, that is such an important shift in the way we think about how we're walking around in the world.
Hmm.
Are we
Yeah.
seeking or are we being?
Hmm.
And I've said to myself in times of struggling, whether it's struggling financially, struggling with health, struggling with, you know, all of this that I'm talking about. Obviously, I've lived it to get to this point enough, to just come to a place where you really, really don't, where you have enough, where you say, said to myself, I just want to fall in love with my own life. I want to fall in love with my
Hmm.
life. And that means you can design your life and the life you want. You got to know what you want
Hmm.
first. But when you do know what you want and you can put yourself into that visualization, you start to feel pretty good about yourself. You're like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that to get to not to get to, but I can do that. And I am loving my life now. And pretty soon you are doing the things. I mean, 2 years ago, I set out to start this business, and I didn't know. I had to trust it. I had to trust a vision, but I didn't go about it from a seeking kind of energy. I went
Mm-hmm.
about it with, I'm doing this and I'm living this life.
Mm-hmm.
And every day was a micro step of where I would acknowledge, okay, today I may not be earning a living yet, but I'm able to do this much of that of the life I am living. And now, 2 years later, I'm actually doing those things. I
Mm-hmm.
have um, a wonderful, wonderful life that I'm very, very pleased with. I have the studio that's beautiful that I've built, and I have um, clients that I'm slowly attracting to. Again, it's not flourishing. We're not talking a business that's, I still struggle on the level that, a new business, growing pains and all those things that come along with having a new business. So it's not perfect, but I have to step back and have some gratitude and awareness of how far I've come and what I'm actually doing is what 2 years ago I wanted to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and that is really cool. All the things that I never thought were possible, you know, will I be able to, will I be able to maintain this? Will I be able to open up this studio and keep my car in Brooklyn? Material things. I'm like, I still have my car. I still live in Brooklyn, and and I've got a life that I'm doing. I go to Costa Rica. I want to have the next leg of this is to have a retreat in Costa Rica, possibly with you.
That'll be awesome.
And I just these are things that I see as juicy goals to have and that are attainable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh,
So
love
I don't
it.
know if I just jumped in too far into all that.
No, we're playing. Remember? No.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not
Go
going to
ahead.
second guess it.
Finish. No, yeah, don't. No, I'm telling you, you're in the flow. I'm feeling it. I'm over here smiling because I feel you as you're saying all these different things. I'm like, yeah, I needed to hear that myself, and that's all. I just sense that it's coming from the heart. It's coming from a
Yeah.
place of vulnerability, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful coming from this place of vulnerability from you.
And I'll say
Because
one
it's
more thing that's
yeah.
quite vulnerable, and also other people struggling with their health. My body has not been 100% this entire time. I got long COVID 2 years ago. So starting a business
Mm,
with a health setback and that challenge with something as serious as, long COVID, which drains your health. I mean, sort of drains your energy level, your ability to mentally focus. It's just been really, really hard. So not only did I have financial, like, yikes, but I had the health dipping. It kind of like all the things I was afraid of happening before I set out to do this happened.
mm,
You know, um, so, and I think the big thing is the health. But again, going back to the body, I've just tried to look at that and been like, okay, what's this about? What's this health challenge about? And the more I look about it, each time I'd have a bout and I would just go down for months at a time and try to heal myself and second guess myself because what I'm trying to do with my work is supposed to be good for your immune system. It's supposed to be good for all these things. And I'm like, I can't be out there promoting this if I am not in my optimal health. And so there was a lot of like, my confidence was shot. I mean, it was really, really behind the scenes was not great. Um, and I listened to my body, and ultimately, what it needed was rest. It needed rest and recovery. And each time I had that, I had some deep. I mean, each time I had a setback, it was a step forward.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Because becoming the healer means you've got to suffer a little bit, let it happen, heal it yourself. Find, seek, go deeper, go another layer, And that's what it's been like. It's been, and I feel that this is now on the back end. I don't think that I'm going to have COVID forever. I don't think I'm already, bottoming out of it. It's just that each time I have again, it's a step back, it's a step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm, I know it's a hard thing to process for people who are in it, but I just want to say it out there if anyone's struggling with their health, and know that um, you need to give your body what it needs in that time. Give it some care and love, and just acknowledge, all have past traumas and things that our body are clinging to and habits you may need to change. I've had to change my diet to give up things I really love, to just do less, get out of my head and think that I can accomplish 9,000 things in one day. Realize, like, no, I can do 8,000 things.
I was about to say you. I'm sure you still do a lot.
I mean, take it down a notch. You know what I mean?
That's beneficial, right?
Give yourself a break. Yeah.
Exactly. I love all of this. Listening to your body, that's come up several times here, and how important and valuable that is. It can be hard for a lot of us, a lot of people, to listen to their body. And I think the work you're doing, aerial and yoga, and really building that relationship with our bodies, learning how to listen to our bodies. And for some of us, like I'm pretty intense character. I like to do a lot of things, and sometimes it's hard to slow down. And my body just almost shuts down on me because of lack of sleep or
Mm-hmm.
pushing myself so hard mentally and physically to accomplish these things. And I'm like, what am I doing this for? Why am I pushing myself so hard such
Mm-hmm.
that after a few weeks, my body's like, all right, man, you got it. You can't do nothing. I don't want you to read anything. I don't want you to do any kind of physical exercise. Can you just relax this day? It's still hard for me to do that. I still always going to engage my intellect in some capacity because I just like it. But my body though is just shuts down. I can tell. I'm like, oh wow, I'm exhausted. I've pushed it too hard, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a tendency not to sleep enough, which is not good because my body is saying rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I practice yoga. I'm really into health and wellness and taking care of myself. But I find it interesting though that life can be hard. Like a lot of the things that you mentioned, life is hard. There are challenges, and we want to do certain things. And sometimes we can get caught up in the striving too much, too hard, and
Mm-hmm.
not listening to our bodies. And I know better,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like, oh, I really want to accomplish this thing. I really want this to work. And thinking I'm going to force it to work. And I'm like, I'm not, I can't force it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to just sit with it and find the right balance. Find that right balance that you're speaking of. Where do I know I need to put effort in. Maybe if I'm doing 9,000 things, coming down to 8,000 is a good balance for me.
Yeah.
For somebody else, 2,000 is enough. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not even.
Right. You got to
But for
find
me,
your limit. Yeah.
you got to find your limit, but it's a healthy balance. The effort is still there, but you're not going you're not going
Yeah.
overboard with it.
It's not
And
sustainable.
it's not sustainable because it's chasing something. So when
Mm-hmm.
I ask myself, what am I chasing? When I am, I think I feel like. So speaking of being vulnerable, I'm like this on this podcast. I share
Mm-hmm.
my stuff. I don't care. I feel like I feel like I allow myself to still be captured by what other people think. And what I mean by that is I want to be able to accomplish certain things. I'm a well-educated person. I have all of these ideas about supporting human well-being. And yet when it comes to building a infrastructure or a business, it's not flourishing. Like you're saying, I'm
Mm-hmm.
putting all this energy into this podcast, and at this moment, I don't have thousands of listeners, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to do certain things like putting commercials in here. Imagine you and I having this vulnerable conversation, and a McDonald's commercial popped up in the middle of it. I hate that on podcasts. Or
Yeah.
someone, even at the beginning of it, someone trying to sell you shit. I'm not gonna do it, and I'm not willing to do it. I'm like, well, I'm willing to build up this thing in this way that works for me, within my values. And And yet I know, I have faith, but I'm human. I have the day to day, and there are moments where I'm like, okay, I do need some financial input. I
Mm-hmm.
do need people starting to tune into this. And eventually, I want people to
Mm-hmm.
support the community. I'm trying to build up a community that's willing to be vulnerable like we are and open and have a genuine conversation and really explore this theme of this potential for us to live in a beautiful world.
Mm.
Just explore it. That's where it starts. Talking with each other, learning from each other. I learned something from you already, and it's only been 30 some minutes into this conversation. You got me
Well, you
now
taught me a
spilling my
lot too.
beans.
So
I'm,
I
I'm
guess
spilling my beans.
I'm just sort of mirroring it back. Actually, a lot of the wisdom that I've gotten over the years, knowing you and being really influenced in a big way. So your work, it's a slower
It's slow,
feedback
right?
loop, maybe what you and I are doing,
I know.
and I've just learned to be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm learning. It's a process. Fam,
Mhm.
people,
Yeah,
boy, it's a process. It's
yeah.
not easy. And, especially when there are people who care for us, who care for you. They're like, hey, do this thing, push this and do that. And I'm like, no, I'm not chasing that. I'm not
Mhm.
chasing, oh, I'm to be an influencer and a social media influence. Oh, if you do this, and friends telling me if you post this thing and if you do this, and then more people, you need to get people on you. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe
Social
I'm old
media,
school. I'm
social
old
media,
school.
yeah, is the chase. It's
Hmm.
totally built for the chase. It is the
Yeah.
chase, and it's that thing that yeah, I have a really hard time with it too. I have a
I
terrible
po I
time with it.
know.
I post.
I
I know it's an obligation now. Everyone tells me you got to, and so I do the minimal. I do.
minimal. I like you. We have a presence. This is what, like with this podcast. I
Hmm.
post a clip of the each guest, and which is fine. I think that's good. I think that's beneficial. But I'm not doing all that stuff that people do just to hack the algorithm so you can get on. I'm like, no. I mean, if we can, if people are not open to hearing this kind of conversation, with the right people will show up. It'll build slowly. It's old school. It's like,
That's the way.
it's a
That's the
word of
way.
mouth. It'll
I'm
build
doing word of
slowly, and
mouth.
I'm
Yep. And also, I found that even I tried going the influencer route, and I mean, I hired some lovely people, some lovely young ladies. They were smart. I was happy to collaborate with them and learn from them in the beginning when I launched. And they, helped me get up and running at a point where I was just like, I don't even do Instagram. I'm not, I'm another generation. Like, I don't even think my people are on there. And, I just had a whole resistance to it.
yeah.
So I hired these people to help me. I had to because I was not going to do it on my own. And they held my hand to a point. But honestly, the people who are coming to see me now as regular clients who love the work, who are excited about it, they're all friends of mine or people that came through a friend. It was word of mouth from me walking around the city, going to places, showing up, and having real conversations that where they could see, hey, you're doing well. You look happy. You look like you really are into this and you're speaking from the heart about it. I want to try it. And
Yeah.
so that's where I found that people stick with it rather than the hit and runs who
Yeah,
were
I'm good
coming
on
in
that.
from like, I don't need that. I don't need hit and runs. I've
Yeah.
said no like so many times now, and ClassPass called me and were like, we want to list you, and they take such a huge cut. I said no to ClassPass. I'm
No,
not
I
doing
think
it.
you.
They
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
offer me like a tiny little amount to promote, and I don't know, maybe I'm making a mistake, but it was just from my gut. I went, nope,
No,
don't,
I think you're.
no.
Folks, and you're like, why are you talking about that? I'm like, no, this is it. This is we're sharing with you the process, the quest of the good life.
Mhm.
My life is great. I might not have my financial situation today in this very moment is not good,
Mm,
but
sorry, but
I
also
am.
I know, I
I'm
know you,
happy,
Roderick.
man.
You're gonna find it.
I'm happy. I'm like, I always tell people, I'm like, what, if I were to die tomorrow, I'll be on my deathbed. I'll be like, yeah, I'm happy I did what I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, you and I, for instance, we know each other. I'm not an idiot. You think not, I can't read the room and figure out how to just make lots of money. If that's what I wanted to do, not have the intelligence
No.
to do that, if that was what I was striving for. But I'm striving to do something. I feel like I found my calling. I think that's important, and I'm trying to find a healthy balance. And I just gave that thing about how sometimes I overdo it, but that's life. I'm happy in the sense that I am grateful for the life that I have. And I love how you say I'm falling in love more and more with my life.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that everything is like fun and it's pleasurable all the time. No, it's not. It's not pleasurable being broke. No, it's not at all.
No.
And so it's not it's not pleasurable when you put your whole heart into something and you don't feel like there's a lot of reciprocity, and you start to question and doubt yourself and like, is something wrong with me? Am I not doing something right? All Even though I go through all of that, I feel like I'm living a good life.
Mhm.
Is it going? And I feel like and it doesn't mean that it's all pleasurable all the time. It doesn't mean that there's not low points. And I feel like there, in certain aspects of my life, there are low points, and then other aspects of my life, there are high points. That is life. I feel like it is a process. And how do I contend with the process of life? How do I be honest and vulnerable with you and sharing it with the world about my challenge of finding a healthy balance and negotiating all of these conflicting things that are going on in my mind, that's ultimately interested in my well-being, be it financially, physically, etc. Some things get compromised in that process.
Hmm.
I'm saying I'll say that is the process of life. And I'm learning how to do that better. The way I look at it, that's the quest of a good life. And I can learn how to do that better in conversations with people like you, from reading and studying and practicing. I'm learning how to refine my capacity to live well. I'm learning how to refine my capacity. I love what you said, falling in love with my life, falling in love, not necessarily with myself, because that can get weird. You can
No,
get
no, no. There's a difference.
narcissistic. Very
Mhm.
big difference. I'm glad. That's why I love that you said it, because falling
No,
in love with your life is a very different thing than falling
no,
in love with
no.
yourself.
Exactly. What I meant by that, just to clarify for listeners, is that as opposed to, if you want to look at it, it is almost looking at the outside. What am I doing? I'm waking up in the morning. Where am I living? What city am I in? What is happening on a day to day basis? Am I when am I teaching a class? Who's coming to see me? How do I feel during this class? Doing what I'm doing what I love, getting to do what I love, and the
Mm-hmm.
freedom.
Yep.
Freedom, that's huge, 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 huge.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So I look at my bank account too, and it's not a happy moment, but
I feel
um,
you.
and I know that it's just but I had to have some trust in that what I'm doing each day is, it's still the beginning of business. It's still
Yeah.
beginning of doing something new. It's going to lead to the next thing, and
Mm-hmm.
trusting that process, trusting the fact that all businesses need a little bit of, you got to give it some room,
Yeah.
and growth. And so, yeah, you cut back in corners. I mean, I've had to, uh, whatever it is each month, sometimes it's like, well, okay, let's not go too far into debt. Let's sell off an old chair that
Mm-hmm.
we don't need anymore. It's really pushed me to be in that position of, and it's that's not something that I love, and I'm being very honest and vulnerable saying that I love to be doing at my age, but I'm okay with it. I'm like
See?
really okay with it. I'm like, you know what? This is better than the lot of alternatives. I'm doing what I need to do, and I have a chair to sell, so it's fine.
Right?
You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to make someone else happy. My chair that I've had for all this time is going to go into someone else's life, and I'm okay letting it go.
Hmm.
So it's just finding those little compromises to help you take those steps towards where you want to be.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's a little letting go in there, letting go of fear, letting go of the chair that you need to sell or the dress you don't need anymore. There's shed those things and make room for others.
Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah. No, it's so beautiful. We're talking
It
about our.
works.
Yeah, you're saying I love it. Yeah, I don't love the challenges like you said, but I'm feeling great. I have freedom to do what I love, and
Yeah.
yeah, I have to reevaluate and renegotiate on a regular basis. Okay, then how am I going to maintain doing this? And I love how you brought up balance. It's
Yeah.
finding that right balance consistently doing that. And you're saying what you said about being mindful. You didn't use the word mindful, but I'm using the word being mindful, being observant, paying attention, all those questions that you ask yourself. What city am I living in? What am I doing
Mhm.
right now? That's a
Mhm.
very mindful approach to self-awareness, making
Mhm.
a self-assessment, making an assessment about
Mhm.
your experience right now, and then
Yeah. You zoom out.
renegotiating what
You
you're
zoom
doing.
out
That's
and you say,
yeah.
"Hey, I'm Broderick. I'm living in a very, very desirable place. It's not easy
Hmm.
to maintain life here. Most people can't even do what you're doing. You're
Hmm.
already ahead of the game living in San Francisco, in the Bay
Hmm.
Area. You
Hmm.
are, by a lot of people's standards, that's winning alone, able to
Hmm.
survive there. But so that's, you start with that. You're like, yeah, I'm in a good place. I'm in a good place
Yeah.
where I want to be, and that's a good life. Like starting with that, and you've got people around you, a community that's supportive. I hope you do.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
feel like you do.
definitely. Yeah.
But this isn't a reading on you, all of you. I'm just sort of giving a template for
Yeah.
how we can ask ourselves questions about where we are and how we love our life and what we could possibly shed or get rid of to make room for what we really want. And it's knowing what you want. I mean, for me, the list was very clear, and you've got to keep rewriting the list if it evolves. But it was about freedom, being number one, meaning that can mean financial freedom or whatever. That's still there. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting closer. And giving back and doing this aerial work that I feel is profound and makes me feel good to do. And I always say, like, well, even if I had a ton of money, what would I be doing? I'd be doing
Hmm.
this.
Love it.
So ask
Love
yourself
it.
that. If money weren't the issue, what would you be doing? And I just know I needed to be doing this. And so that's how this all started. 6 years ago, I was just, I had jobs, I had a roof over my head, I had a pretty comfortable life, and I started doing tons and tons of aerial because something was a little out of balance in my own personal life. And so there I was spending all my money on trainings and doing the aerial and learning it and buying rigs and all of it until I finally just realized, I need to kind of integrate this into my life. And if it's such an important part of my life that I should make it. Yeah, I
Hmm.
fell in love with aerial and now I'm doing it. So,
That's awesome. I love it. I love how, yeah, the things that you're speaking about is so practical and real. I think it's what you were doing, and you mentioned grace earlier. You're opening yourself up to grace. These
mm,
things, when we're present, when we're like the way I look at it, anyway. Because you're right. Grace is always like gravity. Is always here. It's just a matter, am I receptive to it? And I think what you're talking about with this idea of being able to attract things to you is being able to do the work. So you still need to put in work, effort, folks.
mm,
You're not necessarily chasing, but you're putting in the energy that's required um, to allow yourself to be receptive to grace, to be that attractor to
hmm
grace.
Mhm.
And that means being clear about what we want in the world, in our lives, being honest with ourselves. And you're right, it's taking that bird's eye view. It's
Mhm.
stepping away. Let me be honest with myself. Let me allow myself to be vulnerable with myself.
Mhm.
I think that's when grace happens because we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with ourselves. I'm not saying go out and be vulnerable with other people excessively. That's a different conversation. But to be vulnerable with yourself and be vulnerable in a trusting situation, you allow grace to happen.
Mhm.
And just like we allow, well, gravity is always present, but we can feel that sense of gravity. We can feel grace when we turn the switch on, so to say, and allow it to flood us.
Mm.
And we have to do the work. We have to do the work to facilitate that. And I think that's the way I'm interpreting what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it is indeed. And it's looking inward, and allowing. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of blockages and
Mm-hmm.
layers that need to be examined before you can even feel grace, before you can even know grace.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that not everybody wants to do, to go there. Not everyone wants to go
Mm-hmm.
there, but those who do, there is a reward at the end, and it, I think it's worth the quest. I do.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes, it's definitely worth it. I
Hmm.
want to ask you, I know we're getting closer and closer to the end here, but I wanted to ask you, because both of us, we use the word business. I look at business as just an infrastructure, but I think what we also both use the word community. And you're building a community. I'm building a community. We do have communities that we're connected to already. Can you say a little more about the value of community and the importance of community in a life that's worth living, a
Hmm.
beautiful life?
Yeah. Well, as much as I've stressed, wanting to fall in love with my life, I had to start with that before I can even enjoy being a part of community, or creating a space to invite a community to be around me. I mean, it's always been an important element of my life, even back when I was doing the band and storytelling. It was all about collaborating and being with others in a creative space. So that's super important. And then, but then there's a point where you can do that and get away with it as half a person. You're not quite whole yourself, and you can kind of lean on your community to sort of prop you up. And so one day I looked around and I was like, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not fully whole.
Hmm.
Something's broken, something needs to be examined. I just felt it. I felt out of touch with myself. And so that's where I really had to take some time out and be away, or sort of, well, the pandemic gave us that opportunity where you had to, like, by maybe too much, it was too isolating from community. I mean, I still had people around me, but it shrunk. My community shrunk quite a bit. And that's when I also began to value it. But first, you need to put yourself back together again, and so that you are whole, and so that you do love your life. Because otherwise, I did find myself again leaning too much onto it. Now I feel ready, standing centered, to attract the right kind of community. To attract the right kind. There's not a right or the wrong, but there's the one that uh, there's the one where I belong now, for where I am in life. There is one, and I'm just confident that me being me, centered in the work I love doing, talking about it, being myself, being honest, is going to be the thing that attracts like minds, and people who are willing to. I don't know. Not everyone wants to do what I'm doing, and I'm not trying. I don't need. I know it's niche. I know it's super niche, or what we're doing. Not everybody wants to do it, but community is. I mean, we just can't do this work alone. We can't. So you come to a certain stage where you love your life and you're standing in center in grace, and then you want it to multiply exponentially, the energy to grow. It's also important because look where we are in the world, getting so disconnected.
Yeah.
And that disconnection, it's just, it only can sustain us so far. So I believe I think I answered your question twofold. One is that it's really important to be whole in yourself, almost like your own constellation. And then let that, from that point of after having done that work, or being willing to continue to do, to grow, you find other people that are on a similar path that can support you, and you can support them, and it just becomes this wonderful energetic feedback loop where you're all in it together. I I feel very, very I just feel very satisfied when I'm with friends and like-minded people. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Because I love how you brought that up about community. So being in community is not just having people around to hold us up.
Mm,
We do need people to hold us up sometimes, but we shouldn't have to be dependent on that. And I think that comes to you loving our lives.
mm-hmm,
And then it requires all those different practices and things that you can do to learn how to love our lives
mm-hmm.
and to be present in our lives, to be centered and grounded in grace. Um, yeah, to have that, that's so important, and be in community, and be in community while at the same time loving our lives and being grounded in grace.
Yes.
It's such an important, you know,
And to stress it, when you love your life, you're a role model for someone.
yeah, exactly.
You're a role model for someone else to love their life in their
Mm-hmm.
way. And
Yeah.
I feel that that's how you lift other people up,
Mm-hmm.
even without saying it, or
Yeah.
without, you don't have to overstate it. You're just being it. And you're like, wow, she's doing okay over there. That's pretty inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that's really, really, that to me is inspiring, knowing, and because I know people have done it for me.
Yeah.
I saw them doing it. Okay, okay. So there's possibility there. This is possible. And I wholeheartedly acknowledge them.
Mm-hmm. We be an inspiration in someone else's life
Hmm.
by our lives.
Hmm.
And that's where that community part comes in again when you're saying being around like minds, being around
Hmm.
people who value you as a person, not because you're a perfect person, but just
Hmm.
because of you and who you are. And I know loving your life and being
Yeah.
grounded
And
in
being yourself
yourself.
can be contagious. Then you let someone else be
Hmm.
themselves. We're all sitting
Exactly.
here putting on a mask and a
Yeah.
shell to project, some perfection. It's very
I know.
alienating. It is. It's just
Yeah.
alienating, and I found that was my experience of uh, doing the rock star path. That it was like a little. It was. I did it in the beginning because it was fun, and it was sort of like a little fantasy of mine, and it was also I had a feeling of community and family with my bandmates, and we were all in it together. But in the end, it was there was contention, there was competition, and a lot of other complicated feelings that got in the way, that robbed us of that initial feeling of like, let's just all have fun and do this and make music and da da da. Suddenly, when it became something else, um, it robbed us of that community feeling that we were really going for in the first place.
Yeah. Awesome. And again, that was community then, and it was in a different situation because you said something else earlier too. I think that's really important, and we kind of mentioned this earlier in the conversation as well. When you said that the community I need now in my
Mm.
life. What's now, folks?
Hmm.
We have to adjust. That again, it comes up what you're saying about being mindful. Basically, is you're being present to what your needs are right now, and the kind of community you need right now, and and the person that you are becoming or being and becoming, and being in a nurturing community that supports that. That community looks different than it did
Mm.
20 years, 30 years ago, however long that was when you were doing the rock song. Was it
Hmm.
20 years ago? 20 something years
Uh,
ago?
I mean, it was a long stretch. It was like a 17-year run.
Oh,
So,
okay. Oh, okay.
yeah, we started it 20 years ago, but then it went on and on. And
Oh,
I
okay.
still want a reunion sometime. I'm not done.
That'd be
Just
awesome.
it'll
That'd be
be
awesome.
it'll be a different incarnation, but you know,
Yeah, and then look at the vibe that you get to bring. I
yeah,
loved our conversation today,
yeah,
Petra. I mean,
oh,
it
Broderick.
was this is the type of conversation I really enjoy, where we're just being real and raw and vulnerable and being honest. I think for me, just me, the person having this conversation with you, it's making me be reflective. It's making me see the nuances and see the different ways of looking at things and how you're articulating it through your experience. You're not just, giving a philosophical uh, discourse on what living well means, which is fine, but you're speaking to it from where you are right now in your life, in your experience. And that's just awesome. I think that's a powerful lesson for me and for the audience, I hope,
Yeah, yeah.
to really just learn from someone's current experience and like, hey, I'm figuring this shit out as I go.
I think there's more of that than people are willing to admit. That's what
Right?
I'm seeing is, yeah, it's messy.
Yeah.
This whole process is kind of messy, and I mean, at least it has been for me, and
Mm.
I'm definitely, um, I still want to encourage people to go on and find their grace and joy, and
Hmm.
and find the thing that they would do no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. Are there any final words you'd like to leave for the audience today, Petra? This is.
I think I kind of just said it. It's just I
Mm.
really I think it's so important to just, if we can just dig down and or you can start it in one day, just stopping whatever stuckness that you're feeling. Stop with the stuck, rethink it, rethink where do you want to be, possibly, just reimagine your life in a way that is, um, may seem unattainable for where you are now, but try to reimagine what you want, what or how you want it to look, how you want it to be, and you will find that when you ask yourself those questions, you might be surprised by where, because these things change and throughout our lives. What you wanted when you were 25 is maybe not what you want at 55. It's going to be, we do have to ask ourselves and then see. Oh, don't feel stuck where you are at 55, because you're not. And that's, I think that just that little bit of possibility turns the knob up on our happiness a lot, I think,
Yeah.
of knowing that there's possibility, there's still time left, and it's yours to explore.
Lovely, Petra. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I can't say,
Thank
I can't put into words how valuable this conversation was to me, and just
you. Well, you
yeah.
started it.
This is great, and it's just, yeah. I hope we do something like this again. And looking forward to the next time we have a chat. I love you so much,
Yeah.
sister.
We'll reconnect and see where we are, and then, at the next station. And in the meantime, yeah, hello to your whole audience, and thanks for listening to us. And Broderick is wonderful, and I'm so thrilled to be here. And thank you for giving me a chance to talk like this with you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope this conversation has inspired you to reflect on your own views of the good life. If you enjoyed the show, and want to hear more inspiring and thought-provoking conversations, please follow, write a review, and rate us on your favorite podcast app. If you are tuning in on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support is very much appreciated.